Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely chilling real-life account, originally documented by Kuni Monday, is Kisei Kavashlation, the mystery of the Manali 28 km loop. It's an incident that completely blurs the terrifying line between deep psychological trauma and dark local mythology. Whether you're a hardcore skeptic or a firm believer, the sheer anatomy of this haunting is absolutely fascinating. So let's get right to it. Picture this, right? It's 3:30 a.m. in a dead quiet hotel room. A 25-year-old guy named Samai is wide awake, but he's really not himself. He's staring dead-eyed into a mirror, violently choking himself with his own hands. His eyes are completely blood red, and while he's choking, he's actually singing a famous child's lullaby, Chanda Haitu, Mera Sorj Haitu, which translates to, "You are my moon, you are my sun." Now, to understand how on earth we arrived at this horrifying climax, we need to trace the exact sequence of events that led up to it. Part 1, a journey to heal. We've got to rewind a bit to see how this builds. You know, this wasn't just your standard weekend road trip. It was a desperate rescue mission by 4 close friends, Sahil, Chirag, Arun, and Samai. And man, the emotional baggage they brought with them was incredibly heavy. The core of this entire account revolves around a profound psychological vulnerability. Just 3 or 4 months before this trip, Samai's younger brother was tragically killed in a vehicle accident during a school trip. Samai went from being the absolute life of the party, the guy who always made everyone laugh, to someone completely hollowed out by grief. Hoping to pull him out of this dark place, his friends planned a sudden getaway to the beautiful mountains of Manali. But as you'll see, Samai's heavy grief actually becomes the tragic anchor for the paranormal nightmare that follows. Which brings us to part 2, the Rotang Pass warning. So the trip actually starts out perfectly fine. They hit up various spots over the first couple of days. But the real pivot point happens on day 3. Right as they're leaving their hotel to drive up to the famous Rotang Pass, the hotel receptionist stops them with this ominous, highly specific warning, return before 6 p.m. And this brilliantly illustrates the intersection of geography and local folklore. Why the 6 p.m. curfew? Well, locally, Rotang translates to Valley of Death, or a pile of corpses. Centuries ago, night travelers were routinely found dead in this valley. While authorities always chalked it up to freezing temperatures or accidents, the locals fiercely believed it was the work of a Mayavi Saya, a phantom shadow. The fear is so deeply ingrained that locals literally still lock their doors firmly by dusk. And this is where the mistakes really start to compound. The friends, like a lot of tourists do, just laugh off the warning. They figure it's a fabricated story designed to spook visitors, right? So they don't even start their return trek from the pass until after 5:15 p.m. By the time that 6 p.m. local deadline hits, they're still out on the road. By 9:15 p.m., the environment turns actively hostile. There were absolutely no other tourists around. They're trapped in pitch-black darkness and a fog so thick they're creeping along at a mere 30 kilometers per hour. Literally one wrong turn away from a fatal drop into the gorge. Moving right along to part 3, the Manali 28 km loop. This is where the physics of their journey just completely breaks down. Driving blindly through the fog, relying solely on their fog lights, they spot a milestone on the side of the road. It reads, Manali 28 km. Okay, 20 minutes of continuous driving later, they see another milestone. It also reads Manali 28 km. They had entered a supernatural loop. Now, what's really fascinating about this is how the haunting isolated each of them psychologically. It wasn't just the milestone repeating, it was what was on the milestone. Sahil, the narrator of the source material, saw a man sitting there wearing only a white dhoti in the freezing cold. But when they finally spoke up to each other, the terror multiplied. Chirag didn't see a man. He saw a little girl holding a toy. Arun saw a black horse just watching them pass. The entity wasn't projecting a single physical form, it was projecting subjective hallucinations. And Samay didn't see an apparition at all. He just fell into this bizarre trance, muttering over and over that someone needed their help. By the 3rd time they passed that exact 28 km stone, the figures vanished entirely. Pure panic sets in. By 11 p.m., desperate to break this impossible loop, Arun speeds the car up to 40 kilometers per hour. And that is exactly when Arun tells the group not to look out the window. Because at 40 kilometers per hour, someone is walking effortlessly right beside their moving car. Listen, this wasn't just a random ghost. It was a deeply calculated psychological attack. The entity beside the car was a 15-year-old boy. He wasn't running. He was just walking casually at 40 kilometers per hour. He was covered in mud, and his face was battered with severe fresh injuries. The entity had physically manifested the exact horrific state of Samai's younger brother from his fatal accident. And this is the terrifying moment the trap springs shut. Samai, completely hypnotized by the sight of the boy, just repeats his mantra: "Someone needs our help. If someone asks for help, we must stop." He reaches over and actually rolls down his window. Arun, driving in a total panic, frantically tries to engage the car's central locking system to roll the window back up, but the electronics mysteriously and completely fail. The barrier between them and the entity is now wide open. The friends are screaming Samai's name, desperately trying to snap him out of his trance. Suddenly, the boy stops pacing the car. The narrator looks in the rearview mirror and sees the injured boy standing in the road waving goodbye. But the true horror is inside the car. Samai is staring into the rearview mirror wearing a sickening smile and waving back. Immediately after this twisted exchange, the loop breaks. They finally see a milestone for Manali 16 km and eventually make it back to their hotel. Part 4. The 3:30 a.m. possession. So the group arrives at the hotel safely just before 2 a.m. They're exhausted, terrified, and they agree to just discuss the whole thing in the morning and try to sleep. But escaping the valley definitely didn't mean they escaped the entity. The true climax begins an hour and a half later, bringing us full circle to that scene we opened with. Sahil is woken up by a voice. He finds Samai standing at the mirror. The dark entity had completely taken over Samai's body. The choke marks manifesting on his neck suggested this violent internal struggle, yet the entity forced him to smile and sing a child's song, directly mocking the tragedy of his lost brother. The friends are frozen, completely unable to even touch him. And then the entity turns from the mirror, looks right at the friends, laughs this innocent, childlike laugh, and delivers this chilling taunt. "If I knock on your window at night, will you open it to help me?" The second the words leave his mouth, Samai collapses to the floor, totally unconscious. Part 5. The Exorcism. So the crucial point is how they deal with this. By morning, the friends are absolutely certain Samai is possessed. Remembering the receptionist's warning, they immediately seek out a local pundit, a spiritual healer who knows the dark lore of the Roting Pass inside and out. And what the pundit tells them is honestly the most fascinating aspect of this entire explainer. He takes one look at Samai and diagnoses exactly what happened. The haunting wasn't random at all. You see, entities in the Valley of Death feed on vulnerability. This dark spirit sensed Samai's immense fresh grief. It impersonated the tragic state of his deceased brother specifically to bypass Samai's natural defenses and gain an invitation which Samai literally gave by opening that car window. To save Samai's life, the pundit initiates a grave, urgent sequence of ancient exorcism rituals. He begins with Mazar Utarna to immediately ward off the heavy evil eye cast upon Samai. Then he moves right into Jan Funk, a ritual sweeping to clear his immediate aura. This is followed up by a highly sacred, intense puja that's meant to literally force the spirit out of its human host. And this spiritual battle actually culminates in a violent physical reaction. The rituals force Samai to start vomiting violently, and what comes out of him isn't natural. It's a thick, dark, viscous, black liquid. The literal physical manifestation of the dark shadow leaving his body. With that expulsion, the immediate nightmare finally ends, and Samai returns to normal. While Samai survived, Sahil notes in the source material that he's still plagued by nightmares of that lullaby. This account brilliantly highlights how our deepest emotional wounds can actually become our greatest vulnerabilities. It leaves us with a really chilling thought to end our explainer today. I mean, we all want to help those in need, right? Especially those who remind us of the ones we've lost, but if you were trapped in the fog and a familiar face asked for your help in the dark, would you open the window?